Hello, fellow history enthusiasts. Welcome back to Timeless Sagas, the channel where we dive deep into the past to uncover the stories that have shaped the human experience. Today, we are going to explore a fascinating topic that transcends cultures, time periods, and geography: flood myths. Flood myths, sometimes called deluge myths, are stories that recount cataclysmic floods sent by deities, wiping out human civilization in a watery apocalypse. As our ancestors struggled to understand the world around them, natural disasters like floods were often seen as the wrath of the gods. But why are flood myths so ubiquitous across human cultures? What can they teach us about our collective past? And most importantly, why did so many cultures feel the need to tell the story of the end of the world as they knew it? Let's dive in. Let's start with perhaps the most famous flood myth of all, the story of Noah and the Ark from the Bible. In this tale, God becomes frustrated with the wickedness of humanity and decides to purge the earth of all life, save for Noah and his family, whom he finds virtuous. God instructs Noah to build an ark and gather 2 of every animal species so that life may continue after the flood. After 40 days and 40 nights of rain, the floodwaters recede, and Noah, his family, and the animals step out onto a renewed earth. If you're thinking that this story sounds familiar, you're not wrong. It's not just Noah who gets to be the chosen one to survive the end of the world. In fact, many cultures have their own version of a flood myth with a savior figure, and we're about to embark on a whirlwind tour around the world to meet some of them. If you thought the story of Noah was old, buckle up, because our first stop is ancient Mesopotamia, where we find the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest known works of literature. This epic poem dates back to around 2100 BCE and tells the story of the demigod Gilgamesh, king of Uruk. During his adventures, Gilgamesh encounters the immortal Utnapishtim, who tells him the story of the great flood that wiped out humanity. Utnapishtim was instructed by the god Ea to build a boat and gather all living creatures to repopulate the earth after the deluge. Sound familiar? Let's move on to ancient Greece, where we meet Deucalion, the son of the Titan Prometheus. In this story, Zeus becomes enraged by the wickedness of humanity and decides to flood the earth. Prometheus, ever the friend of humanity, warns his son Deucalion, who builds a chest to survive the deluge with his wife Pyrrha. After 9 days and nights of flooding, the chest lands on Mount Parnassus. Deucalion and Pyrrha then repopulate the earth by throwing stones behind them, which magically transform into people. Next up, we have the Hindu myth of Manu. In this story, Manu, the first human, is warned by the fish god Matsya of an impending flood. Manu builds a boat, ties it to the horn of Matsya, and gathers the 7 sages, seeds, and animals to repopulate the earth after the deluge. When the floodwaters finally recede, Manu's boat comes to rest on the peaks of the Himalayas. Now let's travel to the Americas, where we find the story of the Aztec flood myth. In Aztec mythology, the world goes through cycles of creation and destruction, with each age ending in a cataclysmic event. The 4th cycle, known as the Sun of Water, ends when the gods Tlaloc and Xalquilicu flood the earth. Only one man, Coxcoextli, and one woman, Xochiquetzal, survive by hiding in a hollow tree trunk. They later repopulate the earth with the help of the gods. Of course, we can't forget the Native American tribes, each with their own unique flood stories. One such tale comes from the Hopi tribe, who tell of a spider woman who instructed the virtuous people to build boats from reeds and set sail as the earth was flooded. When the waters finally receded, the survivors found themselves on a new continent, North America, and were guided by the Spider Woman to the Four Corners region where the Hopi now live. As you can see, flood myths are a global phenomenon, spanning cultures, languages, and time periods. So why are these stories so prevalent? One possible explanation is that our ancient ancestors were trying to make sense of the natural world around them, and floods were a particularly destructive and inexplicable event. By attributing these disasters to the wrath of the gods, our ancestors could create a narrative that gave them some sense of control over their lives. Another possibility is that many of these stories are based on real events. There is evidence that suggests large-scale flooding occurred in various parts of the world at different times in history. In the case of the Mesopotamian flood myths, for example, there is geological evidence of a massive flood in the region around 2900 BCE. It's quite possible that the survivors of these events passed their stories down through generations, and the tales eventually became mythologized. Now, let's take a step back and consider what these flood myths can teach us about the human experience. It's no coincidence that these stories often focus on themes of sin, punishment, and redemption. The idea that humanity must pay for its wickedness is a powerful narrative that has resonated across cultures and time periods. Whether it's the story of Noah or the tale of Deucalion, each of these myths serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of immoral behavior. But there's another side to these stories, too. In each of these myths, there is also a sense of hope and renewal. After the floodwaters recede, the survivors are given a chance to start anew and create a better world. These stories remind us that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of a fresh start. So, there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of flood myths from around the world. It's fascinating to see how these stories have been told and retold, adapted and transformed, and passed down through generations. They serve as a reminder of our shared human experience and our ongoing quest to understand the world around us. Thank you for joining me on this watery adventure. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Timeless Sagas for more fascinating journeys into the past. And as always, stay curious and keep exploring the timeless sagas of our world. Until next time.